All right, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we're watching what he has to say. He visited the site of that hospital missile attack. He spoke about Israel's partnership with the United States. We know Israel needs the United States for any next step. This is what he had to say.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it, and we, of course, will make our own determination. But I have to say that the partnership with the United States, the partnership with President Trump, with whom I speak to almost every day, is incredible. I think his resolve, his determination, and his clarity when he says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and for that to take place, Iran cannot enrich uranium.
So you heard his words there, the Prime Minister saying we are able to do it. Let's talk to Willie James Inman with CBS News there on the White House lawn. His comments come as we're learning President Trump has reviewed and approved even potential attack plans. Netanyahu saying those words, we are able to do it. Able with the help of the United States, Willie?
Yeah, that's right, Reed. It would certainly take the U.S. being involved in this situation, specifically to attack Fordow. That is Iran's most secure nuclear enrichment facility. Israel, I should say, would need those bunker-busting bombs that the U.S. has to be able to destroy that facility to impact Iran's nuclear program. And as you mentioned, President Trump has reviewed and approved those attack plans, but he hasn't made the final decision on whether or not to attack. And the president alluded to this in the past couple of days, essentially saying that he could decide at the last minute that things could change. We know, of course, U.S. officials are hoping for a diplomatic ease and to ease these tensions between Israel and Iran. We know that today at the White House, the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor is meeting with the UK Foreign Secretary to discuss these tensions in the region. The UK Foreign Secretary, I'll note, will be heading to Geneva to take part in conversations with the Iranian Foreign Minister, perhaps to work out some type of situation to provide an off-ramp to these tensions that we're seeing play out. But the White House here will hear shortly from Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in just moments. She'll brief reporters. We'll perhaps get an update from the White House. We know that President Trump had a national security meeting, had a briefing earlier this morning. Of course, those briefings are closed press, but we can certainly anticipate that the president received an update not only with the situation and how the U.S. sees it in the region, but what has transpired overnight, including what happened at that hospital in Israel, Reed.
Well, you mentioned that press briefing with Caroline Leavitt. We just want to tell our viewers as soon as we see that, we will bring you what she has to say. But Willie, it feels like at this point in time, the toes of our military who are stationed all over the Middle East, it at least feels like those toes are on the line awaiting the president's word. But all the while back in Washington, members of Congress, and we're hearing Republicans and Democrats alike are wondering if the president will act without first involving Congress. What are you hearing there?
Yeah, that's right. Remember, Congress oftentimes wants to have a say in declaring war. Congress can officially declare war on a country, and we're seeing a bill proposed by Republican Representative Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Ro Khanna of California, a Democrat, proposing this bipartisan legislation to essentially allow Congress to have a say in all of this. Remember, the president is thinking about this in terms of what's happening on the ground, reacting in real time to the situation that has certainly escalated since Israel preemptively attacked Iran. But members of Congress still want to have their say in all of this as well. Of course, it's interesting to see this play out because Republicans perhaps don't want to be on the wrong side of President Trump. In fact, some Republicans have come out in support of what the president is doing and in support of not allowing Iran to have a nuclear weapon. But there's still hope that there can be a diplomatic solution to all of this. Certainly the White House working those channels to see whether or not they could potentially come about that. We know that the U.S. has remained in constant contact with its allies. But still, nonetheless, playing out here is that situation with the Iran nuclear agreement. The president said that Iran had time to negotiate, that they had several weeks to come up with those negotiations. He even alluded to a potential meeting at the White House with Iranian officials. It's unclear if that'll happen, but the White House officials here in Washington still hoping for that diplomatic end to this situation. But as you mentioned, as you said, members of Congress wondering if the president will go about this without the support of Congress.
Up to the minute details as they come in there from the White House lawn. Willie James Inman, always great to talk to you. We know we'll bring you back as news develops. We appreciate it.